Okay, welcome to the wonderful world of PBR, PBR MAT, which is going to allow us to make some much more realistic textures. Um, we're going to learn about different types of texture maps and all the different things they can do. So color map or base color, also called diffuse or albedo, depending on which program you're using, is the kind of standard thing that it's kind of giving it's using the pixels of that texture map to actually visually create the texture. All these other ones are kind of like data, right? It's just kind of affecting how the light is bouncing off of that material. It's displacing the actual vertices, or at least making it look like it, making things look like there's a light on it. Let's take a quick look. This guy, Bill Barber, I think this is a really great little primer website showing what all these texture maps actually do. So if we look here, so a color map just shows the actual sort of pixels on that. A normal, also called a bump map, is typically this sort of purplish image, which is kind of virtually creating a depth to that surface. It's kind of affecting the way that light bounces off of that. And so, we talked about normals on our SOP geometry. So a normal map is working with the normals to create a kind of virtual 3D-ness to it. Even though this is like a totally smooth sphere, it looks like there's little ridges and things to it, right? Once we have a normal map, then we can use a displacement map, also called a height map for our purposes. It's called height. So this is just a black and white texture that actually does move the vertices of the geometry. And then we have reflection, or also called specular map, which is affecting like how kind of that little bright little dot of reflection bounces off of the geometry. And then gloss or roughness. So these are typically kind of interchangeable, but also kind of mean different things. So the glossier something is, then so they're in inverse proportion to each other. Is that how you say it? So high roughness equals low glossiness, and vice versa. So it's similar to specular, but kind of different in small ways. Metalness, or also called metallic map, will, as it looks like here, right? It makes things look like it's more metal. So all of these are just black and white maps you can see here. So reflection, displacement, height, all these are just monochrome. And then we've got AO, ambient occlusion. And so fuzz, we didn't really use that in PBR. Also emit is another one that makes it look like light is actually coming from the material. So just at a glance, I think that's all good to know about. So let's look over here. I've already got a PBR. In this case, instead of using, the stupid old sphere or box SOP like I always do, I'm actually doing a file in SOP here for a, let's see, where is this file that I was just using here? This is a rock. If I go in here, assets, models, I've got some rocks here. So I've got a rock.obj. So I've got obj file. I've also got the texture file. So this is the color map right there. And it's always kind of interesting how the UVs are kind of stitched together. So the program that created this obj kind of recorded it in this way, and then it kind of just knows to like map it back onto the geometry. So this is a kind of interesting way of, this is an image created for other computers to see, not necessarily for humans to see. So that's an interesting concept. I got this model and a lot of other models just as an aside. Sketchfab is one of many cool websites that you could go to download free models. You can type in anything to your heart's content. There's lots of different categories. Some of them are paid, but lots of them are free also. So if we look, like something like this, Right, you could go in and you could kind of like rotate to check it out, and you get more information. You can kind of see how many textures. So this has one texture. So this just comes with the color map, which is very easy to work with in Touch Designer. Other models might come with lots of textures, like so something like a watch, for instance. So this is usually quite complex. That would have lots of different materials for, like, that glass is shiny and the different metal, and there's leather. So we can see here, do I have more information? No? No, I don't see more information on this one. So it should tell us how many textures. Model inspector, there we go. Material channels, so we've got like, it's coming with all these other maps included with it also. So this is kind of useful to use for our PBR. So that's, you can spend a lot of time on this website just kind of looking for other models if you wish. But I want to point out, when you do that, just be aware, because usually whatever Blender or Maya, whatever program is used to create these, whatever coordinates they were saved with are saved with the object. So here we can see that this rock showed up not at 0, 0, 0 like normal, but it's kind of over here on the side. So it's not showing up, because if we let me split and let's do geometry viewer, check it out, there it is. So here's my camera, but I'm not even seeing it right there. So let's just move this over. Let's do like, okay, beautiful. Now I can actually see it. And I'll just go ahead and put it at 0, 0, 0, and then I'll move my camera as needed, just to be like standard. Let's move this up a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and just be fancy here. I'm going to get like a null for my light. So null's at 0, 0, 0. I'm going to move my light up a little bit. Cool, and I'm going to move it to the right too, I think. There we go, that looks good. I'm going to do the same thing for my camera. Just make that go up a little bit. Okay. That looks pretty good. Maybe move it a little bit closer. Okay. So, and I went ahead and did this attribute create. A lot of times, it's not doing it right now, but when we're dealing with PBRs, very often the render will give us a little error like, oh, you need normals, you need tangents, add an attribute create SOP. So if I know I'm using a PBR, I usually go ahead and throw that in. So I have loaded my rock01.jpg image file already in my movie file in, and let's just go ahead and put this into base color map. Beautiful. And let me drag that onto that material. Great. So it's like black. It's so dark. Why is that so dark? It's on there, but I can't even see anything. So what's happening is PBR typically expects you to have not just a normal light, but an environment light. And we'll talk more about the environment light, which is like the greatest thing ever, in future demos. For now, let's just add it. And this is saying, please add an environment map. So for now, we're just going to do a white constant environment map. Okay, there we go. The idea is we're going to, once we learn about HDR images, create a kind of environmental lighting situation that ends up creating a very realistic lighting environment for using PBR. But for now, just white is good. And that looks pretty good, right? Like, let's actually make this so we can kind of see it better. I'm going to do the kind of standard, like, NFT, like, rotation thing that everyone does in their NFTs. Just add a little rotation on the XYZ. Slightly different timing. Okay, cool. All right, so like right off the bat, our color map, because it was created, along with this model, it is fitting together beautifully, and that looks pretty awesome, right? Another trick, this is just going to mess it up, so why would I do this? But also something to be aware of, if I insert texture SOP, okay, like I said, that just messed it up. Texture SOP gives us some options for how that texture is applied to our geometry. So different types, texture types, right? And I'm forgetting, like by default, which that's kind of crazy, right? Like, that becomes a kind of abstract, cool thing, like in its own right. I think modify. There we go. Modify source. That's like what it was to begin with. Sometimes that's useful if you want to kind of play around with that. So actually, scale could be kind of cool. So not right now, because this is meant to fit that perfectly. So let's just get rid of that. Something to be aware of, though. So okay, so I'm happy with the color map. But what about all these other things? So we've got like the normals, the height, the metallic roughness, all that stuff. So in my PBR, I've got these fields for all these different things. So I can start to actually make these. I can kind of use this as a kind of master template, and let's start doing some stuff here. I'm gonna start using some nulls, and I'm gonna start renaming these. So instead of this, I'm gonna like drag this in just to kind of keep it separate, and let's do normal map. So this creates a normal map from any input. And also I'm going to go ahead and add a level so we can kind of control how extreme that normal map is. And I'm going to rename this normal so we can kind of see how that created. In my level, I could do some extra contrast to make those ridges a little extra nasty. So, okay. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's do PBR, normal map. And that's doing something right there, right? So you can see this kind of subtle, but bump scale, it goes up, and that makes those ridges just a lot more pronounced and 3D-like. You know what? Maybe, what if I did... Let's play around with this light a little bit. Yeah, so this light's still kind of up there. I'm just making this a little bit brighter. Just try to accentuate that a little bit. Okay, I like it. And once we added that normal map, then we this little thing turned on, enable height map, on or off. Let's make a height map. So this is already, this image is, it's not quite monochrome. It's it's almost grayscale, but there's still just some color in there. When we're dealing with the height map, metallic roughness, specular, all that stuff, it expects just a monochrome texture. So we can just put that through monochrome, and let's do another level and another null. And I'm going to call this height. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of copy all of these. I'm going to do, because we also need specular, metallic, and roughness. Let's just do this. Specular, metallic, and I'll just call it roughness. Okay. So these are all the same thing, but I'm going to be able to, change these, tweak them separately as I wish. So that's why I made different ones. Enable height map. Height map's right there. Okay, great. So now that I did that, so normal map is kind of, it's a fiction. It kind of is only making it look like it's changing the 3D properties of it. Once I do height map, I can now do a little parallax scale, which is kind of weird. Displace vertices. Whoa, okay, so there you go. That's crazy town. So 0. So that is actually changing the geometry depending on the darkness and brightness of these things. So if I did something like, let's do like contrast. So if that was like really low contrast, so now that's barely making it move. So the idea would be if display scales all the way up, so anything that's white would be displaced a lot according to its normal. Anything that's black would be not so much, or gray. Now I'm forgetting exactly how that works. That looks. Let's make that nice. Yeah, so black will actually suck the vertex in, actually. So if it was like 0.5 gray, then it's just not going to do anything at all. I mean, I think I just ruined this because my rock was looking pretty good before, so maybe I don't want to be doing this displace vertices on this one because it was pretty good already. But that is something you can do. I think it's really good for landscapey things. So let's just kind of get rid of that. Parallax occlusion. So this would be kind of cool if we had like, imagine an analyze chop with audio, right? So just this little setting, like shaking according to the beat, like the little seams of the rock coming apart. That could be a really cool effect. Okay, specular. Let's see what happens there. Just go ahead and do like all these and see what happens. Okay, whoa, crazy. Let me just get rid of height map for now. So now I've kind of like changed this a lot, by like playing around with all of these. You kind of, so not just on the map, but then you play around with the settings here. So metallic, spec levels, that's not really doing much. Let me do, what, for this one, let's see what happens if I add a little blur. Something like that. Let's make it brighter to start with, maybe. Just want to add a little variation to it. Okay, let's see if that did anything. And so now if I do specular level, it's not really, specular's not really doing much on this one. You gotta like refine that little magic zone. But metallic, you can see it's kind of changing that little bright reflection on it also. So that's kind of nice. So I also kind of hate that, but whatever. We've done what we've done. I could not use these at all. Let's get rid of that. And we could just do something else. What if I did like a noise for these? So now I'm kind of creating a little tension between the color map, what it is, and the noise. So that's kind of interesting. So it's affecting how the metallic is behaving there. Okay, cool. So it's always kind of like you change the map, go back here to the settings, kind of play around with that a little bit. So now it's a kind of, I don't know, like aluminum meteor. So there's like all kinds of things we could do here with tweaking all of these little things. Another thing we could do, instead of, so basically I grabbed in this file that was made with this model. I could use a completely different substance. So let's look at that. Let me like drag these back over here. Actually, you know what? Let's like referencing these. So maybe I'll actually keep that right there, and then I'll drag these over. Let's look at what a substance top is. So a substance top is going to let us, let's actually go into Adobe Substance Share. That's what I want. So this is an example of a great site where you can download materials that have all kinds of really cool texture maps included with them. So let's see, like dirt grounds. Let's click on that. So by and large, these are .sbsar files, which stands for Substance Archive. And usually we can do web player and kind of drag it around or play with the different settings here. So this one we can't drag around, but we can kind of tweak the settings. So this has got like a beautiful different textures to it. So what is an SBSAR? So I have already downloaded several of these. So let's look. So in my assets folder, I also have one called substances. And let's look at, no, the paper one's kind of nice and simple. Actually, you know what? That's a little bit too subtle. Let's look at moss. Okay, that's good. So this groundmoss.sbsar, it actually includes 9 different image files. So we can see output. It's got a diffuse and base color. And we can kind of see these separately. So in this case, I mean, this is basically the same thing. And the PBR, it's called base color, but for some reason it's separated as diffuse. Ambient occlusion, which affects kind of like alpha masking situation. Normal map, height map, great. Specular is just black. Glossiness, roughness, and metallic. So it's got all these image files kind of built into it. And so what I can do is up here in my PBR maps, there is a field here just for substance top, which is pretty awesome. So we can drag that in, and ostensibly, it should. Let me like delete these because this kind of overrides it. Okay, there we go. I find sometimes on a Mac, I feel like it's not grabbing the other maps properly, but let's see if this looks right or not. I'm not really sure. So now this isn't quite, it's not fitting properly to this model because we'd have to actually kind of bring this back into like a Blender or something to get this looking proper. But it's good enough for now. Let me maybe just to see the substance properly. Let me go back to my stupid box that I always use. There we go. And let's do the texture because it's looking crazy on that one side. If we do like face, okay, that looks good. All right. Let me. Is that doing the metallic properly? Okay. Looks like it is. Great. So by default, let me see the size of this. If we go common, let me boost this up 1024 by 1024. All right, that looks better. So by default, each of these was only 256, which is super tiny. If you have, I'm just like gonna flex here a little bit because I got like the paid version, right? So we can like boost this up more and more and more to be like super high res textures. 1024 is fine. Okay, great. So like all these maps are in the substance. PBR is grabbing all of them, and we can kind of play around with these settings. Like the metallic isn't really like doing anything here, so that's why it's not really showing up. So maybe specular, because it's supposed to be grass, so I don't think it should have much specularity. So that looks pretty good. Okay. Another way I kind of like to do it, because sometimes it's nice to have control over all of the individual maps instead of, it's cool that they are all inside the substance top, and we can just drag it just over, over to this field right here. But also it's sometimes nice to kind of tease all those out so we can do other little tricks to it. So another thing we could use is substance select. And so we kind of put substance top onto substance select, and we can select individual maps here. So what I'll do here actually is let's kind of drag these back over. So the idea here being like, oh, I could do this sort of situation where, oh, maybe I want to add like a level and like tweak just that normal map a little bit. And let's just keep like copy paste here, and let's do height. And there's a specular. And there's a metallic, which is just going to be black. But even if it's black, it still basically does something. Like the fact that it does nothing is like matters. Yeah, roughness, which is also called. Actually, this one has a glossiness and a roughness. So usually they're the same thing, but looks like this is actually, they're kind of inverted. Okay, cool. And then let's just go through this situation again. So drag color, normal. And roughness. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. I don't hate that. Let's see what a different one looks like. Let's do steel. Okay, cool. Also, for a lot of these, they have input values. So this just has like a random seed to kind of randomize how that is divided. So let's do burning coal. This one's kind of crazy. And what does this say? Tangent attributes are needed. And that still didn't do anything. So for some reason, that one is not playing nice with the... for this one, I think we need the emit, actually. Let me see. Emissive. There we go. I need an emit map. Ahaha, that's a good one. So let's do another select. Let me select that, emit. And I'll just do the same null. And there's my emit map field down here. Okay. So come on, PBR. Why? So I am missing something here. Where's my emit? I need to like... There we go. That's why. It was multiplying the emit by 0, which was just kind of eliminating it. Okay. It's kind of cool. It's not like the coolest thing ever, but if I did a little bit of a displace. Oh yeah, because I need to create new... The height is only working on these points because it's a box, so there's like no points in between. So that's not really a good use case for that one either. Okay, let's do one more. Let's do a eyeball, and we can see how crazy this can get. And let's do a sphere instead. And let's just rotate on the Y. There we go. All right. Huge weird eyeball. And what we can do here, input values. This one actually has whole lot of cool parameters that we can change. So pupil size, iris size, like eye type, random seed. It's kind of changing that around. Actually, you know what? Let's stop this because I want to be able to just see it properly. Change the iris colors, like whatever. Let's do like, right there you go. So all these things can be changed. That looks insane. Okay. Iris size. So this is really computationally intensive. So none of these things you're going to be able to change in real time. Like I just kind of drag this like once, and it takes a while to update. So this isn't something that you can change in real time, but you can kind of dial it in slowly to get what you want it to be. Okay, cool. So that's good for like PBR substance part 1, I think.